Hi, everyone. Welcome to Inspire to Run podcast. I have the honor of sitting down with Jenny Vierling today. She is the co-founder of Tailwind Nutrition, and she comes from an ultra cycling background and started Tailwind Nutrition about 12 years ago to solve their own personal needs. And then it turned into a successful brand that it is today. And hydration is a topic that we talk about sometimes in the podcast episodes, but not as a dedicated topic. And it's so important, as it's important, just as important as your gear and your training and your sleep. It's an important element for your performance. So just really excited to sit down today with Jenny and learn more about Tailwind Nutrition and their story. So welcome to the show, Jenny.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So, let's really just jump into the conversation. You mentioned that you started Tailwind Nutrition about 12 years ago. Share with us your story. Like, what brought you to that point of starting the company?
Sure. So they say that necessity is the mother of invention, and that is certainly the case with Tailwind Nutrition. So my husband, who rides the Leadville 100 every single year, he was always encountering stomach issues, and it was really frustrating. And I think maybe a lot of your listeners can relate to this, where you spend all this time and energy and effort in training for this event that is like your goal for the year, right? And it's really frustrating to feel like you are ready to go, and then your stomach gives you problems, and then before you know it, you've torpedoed your race because of nutrition or fueling issues. And so he is a problem solver, and he just was like going to figure this out. So he tried everything out on the market. Nothing was working for him. So he sat down and really started looking at how does your body process fuel. So rather than really looking at it from a cellular level, he was really looking at it from a holistic level of how does your body process fuel. And he discovered that quite a number of the products on the market were actually approaching that problem in the wrong way. And so he sat down and he kind of came up with his own formulation, and he started riding with it. And then folks that he would ride with in this bike and beer group, it's just like this group here in Durango, Colorado, they noticed that he was riding with this stuff. And so then they asked him for some samples if they could ride with it. And then they started riding with it and they really liked it. And before you knew it, he was like, I would walk into the kitchen and then I'd see all this powder in the kitchen, just like coming out from the KitchenAid, because he was making it a lot. And he said, well, gosh, maybe I should just throw this up on the Leadville 100 forum and see if people want to test it. And so that's what he did. And he got this note back, or an email back, from this one lady who for 7 years had been trying to finish the Shenandoah 100. And she had never been able to, because at miles 70 or 80, her stomach always shut down. And for the first time, she was able to finish. And in her email, she said that when she crossed that line, she had literally broken down in tears, because it was a goal that she had been trying to reach for so long, and she had finally achieved it. And they were literally like tears of happiness. And I think that's when we realized, wow, there's something really powerful about this, helping people achieve their personal goals. So at that moment, we decided, well, let's give it a try. So we sent the formulation to a co-manufacturer. And so they made a bunch of it for us. I think we came out with 500 units. We threw up a website and we decided to sell it, and people bought it, and then they came back and they bought it again and said great things about it. And then things just grew from there. So that's how the product started. It wasn't supposed to be a company at all. It was really designed for Jeff to be able to finish the Leadville 100, and he did so, and his stomach was happy in the end. So, and then I started using it because, well, as the wife, I was kind of in denial that my husband had actually really created something that was really great. But then I used it at the Silver Rush, which is a 50-mile mountain bike ride in Leadville. And I'm sorry, I didn't use it. I said, well, I'm going to use my own stuff. And my stomach shut down. It was horrible. I got to the halfway point. I couldn't take anything more of what I was drinking or eating. So I was literally like riding back on vapors, and I got caught in a hailstorm, which happens at 10,000 feet. And it was awful. And so then the next time I used his product at a century, I was riding, and it was great. And so then I was converted, and yeah. And so anyways, from there, Tailwind just grew.
Incredible story, and congratulations on all your success. And I love how this started, and I love the journey that you've been on to where you are today. And again, this is such an important topic. And from my personal experience, I'm coming at it from a different direction. I didn't take any hydration products for many years, and I was a cross country runner in high school. So really did a 5K in terms of distance. That was kind of my max. I did a little bit more in training, but not too much more. And then just a few years ago, I started running longer distances as part of my Spartan obstacle course races, which our listeners who've been following us for a while knows that that's kind of my midlife crisis that I've been, kind of doing for the last few years. And as I'm doing the longer distances, I wasn't performing maybe as I wanted to. It just didn't feel good during the runs. It always felt really hard. And I remember I don't remember, it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I remember it was a hot summer. I was running more outdoors because it's COVID. And I was not well for like 2 days. I'm on the couch. I wasn't sick, but I
Oh
wasn't
no.
well. And someone was like, "Are you like taking like electrolytes or like, what are you doing? You're running outdoors. It's really hot. Like, what are you doing for that?" I'm like, "No, should I be?" So, after decades of running, I don't even know the
Uh-huh.
basics, which is quite, not great. So I started to take some things, but then again, running those longer distances for these Spartan races and then eventually half marathons, I needed to carry something on the road that could meet the needs of me being kind of this endurance runner. So my coach introduced me to Tailwind and literally just kind of changed my life. So excited to have you here to learn more about the company, but just to emphasize the importance of hydration and of products like yours.
Yeah. I think it's funny when people start running or they're doing obstacle races, they're really focused on the event at hand and are they, are they wearing the right shoes? Is their pace okay? All these different things to think about. And nutrition is kind of an afterthought. And nutrition can actually end up torpedoing your race, especially if it's a longer race. And it's actually not that complicated. I think a lot of companies out there, they end up making it more complicated than what it really has to be. So it really boils down to three components. It boils down to, in terms of fueling yourself on the course. It boils down to hydration, calories, and electrolytes, and making sure that all three of those are in balance. So if you look at the hydration piece in general, and there's this bell curve, so sometimes people will need less or some people will need more, and it also varies by environmental circumstances as well. But really, for hydration purposes, you want to take about 20 to 24 ounces of water per hour. If you are doing a longer event, say 2 hours plus, you want to target between 200 to 300 calories per hour. And then from an electrolyte perspective, you basically want to replace what you're sweating out. And there are reasons behind that, which I can go into more detail about. But it really does boil down to those three components and making sure that you're taking in the right amounts over the right period of time. What's also interesting is in talking to a lot of runners, people tend to think in terms of distance, like I'm going to take a gel every 5K or I'm going to take a swig every 7K or whatever. But you really want to think in terms of time and not distance because of the variability of the terrain. So you may be able to run, a mile in, 10 minutes on a flat track. Well, I'm talking about myself. So I'm like a 10-minute miler. So like on a flat terrain, I can probably do about a 10-minute mile. But if I'm going uphill, it's going to take me much longer than that 10 minutes to do a mile. So that's why you want to think in terms of time and not distance when you're figuring out your nutrition.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you know, eh, I can connect to this because my training has changed over the past year. I used to run by speed and distance, and now I'm running by time and heart rate. So even for me, the way I'm training today, yeah, I'm taking, my nutrition at certain points of time versus really focusing on the distance. So that's really interesting that's really the guidance for how we should be thinking about nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And the reason why you want to target between 200 and 300 calories per hour is that if you think about how your body does process fuel, it's the amount that you can actually absorb on a per hour basis. So if you're giving yourself way too many calories, you can overload your gut, which can cause GI problems. And then if you're taking in too little, then you're going to be underfueling yourself. And so you're going to run through your glycogen stores much more quickly, and you're going to end up bonking. So when you're out there and you're doing your training, that's a really great time to figure out how many calories per hour you actually can absorb. And you're going to discover this I call it the sweet spot, where you're not feeling overly satiated or full, which is an indicator that you're taking in too many calories, and you're not feeling slow and sluggish, which is an indicator that you're taking in too little calories. And that absorption rate varies from person to person, and it's genetic. It's actually not tied to body mass. So for me, I end up taking in about 225 per hour. My husband Jeff takes in 250 per hour. We find that a lot of runners end up at about 200 calories per hour because there's more stress placed on the GI system. So you just figure it out during your training. And the reason why, from a hydration perspective, you want to target between 20 to 24 ounces of water is that it takes about 10 to 12 ounces of water to digest about 100 calories. And it's often a reason why people end up with problems with gels, because gels are pretty viscous, and people forget that you actually need to take in water with your gel in order to process those calories. So they end up getting dehydrated, which can cause stomach issues. So that's why you want to target between 20 to 24 ounces of water. And again, we're talking about that bell curve, so people will take in less or more, and you just kind of find your sweet spot. And then with the electrolytes as well, on average, the human sweats out between 600 and 800 milligrams of sodium per hour. So that's what you want to replace. And then there are some trace minerals, which is your magnesium, your calcium, and your potassium that you also want to replace. So for Tailwind, what we do is we just combine it all together so that you're basically drinking a bottle an hour and you're good and you don't need to think about anything else.
Yeah. Okay. That's really informative. And I know that there's things that you do differently with Tailwind than maybe with others. So like can you share a little bit about what makes Tailwind a little bit different than maybe some of the other brands?
Yeah, so what we try to do is we basically are about simplifying your nutrition. Like I said, I think nutrition doesn't have to be complicated. And I think if you are, from our perspective, when you are separating the different components of your calories and your electrolytes and hydration, particularly on longer events, it makes it very difficult to keep track of all of that. So if you can figure out what your absorption rate is in terms of the number of calories you're taking in per hour, then you can build it around that. So that's what we do with Tailwind Nutrition. So if you're running it at 200 calories an hour, you fill the bottle, 20 to 24 ounce water bottle with 2 scoops of Tailwind, which is your 200 calories, and then it has the electrolytes in it as well. So you're combining it all. You don't need to think about these different components. It's like a bottle an hour and you're good. And because those components are represented in the right ratio, that minimizes the chance for GI distress. So there are a couple of things around GI distress, which we think Tailwind helps to address. One is because they're liquid calories as opposed to solid calories, they can pass right through your GI system. Your stomach's role is really to break down what you're taking in into usable form of calories. So if you're thinking about solid food, it enters your stomach and there's all these acids and enzymes, which ends up breaking it down into smaller pieces. And also through the digestive process, it's also pulling out the glucose and fructose because that's a useful form of energy that your body uses in order to fuel itself. Well, with Tailwind, our simple carbohydrates are glucose and sucrose, which contains fructose. So it's already in the form that your body uses. There's no digestion required. So it just passes through and is ready for immediate absorption. So we are a huge proponent of liquid calories because we believe that it minimizes that GI distress because your body doesn't need to do anything with it. In addition, you can end up causing GI issues, like I said before, by taking in way too many calories. So you probably know when you go to the aid station and people are just grabbing all of this stuff, and before they know it, they're taking in 600 calories just in that one aid station stop. And so your body, because it can only absorb between that 200 and 300 calories, those excess calories just have to kind of hang out in your GI system waiting to be digested, which can cause GI issues. In addition, there's this condition called fructose malabsorption, which when you're taking in too much fructose, the excess fructose can be sent to your large intestine where all this nasty bacteria hangs out. And then it just has a heyday and you can end up with GI issues. So we've paid special attention to that glucose to fructose ratio so that it works for the vast majority of people, even those who suffer from irritable bowel syndrome. And I think this is a difference where we see what happens in the laboratory, where the laboratory setting shows a 2-to-1 ratio of the glucose to fructose ratio is superior. But in real life on the trail, we think that the ratio of glucose to fructose should be higher. So that's another difference. And then the other thing that can cause stomach issues is that you can end up dehydrated. And so if you're not taking in enough water, your body will literally take water from your bloodstream and bring it to your GI system in order to process those calories, which ends up accelerating dehydration and causes stomach issues as well. And then finally, there's a high correlation with protein and GI distress. And that's one of the reasons why we don't put it in our drink, whereas some other products do include it in the drink or do include it in their fuel. So in a calorie deficit situation, and as I said before, you can absorb between 200 and 300 calories per hour, but you're probably expending more than 500 plus calories an hour, right? So your body makes up for that difference through your glycogen stores, which is your quick energy, what you're eating and drinking, and then also your fat stores. And so what you're really trying to do is you're trying to maximize your absorption of calories in order to minimize going into your glycogen stores because that has a finite limit. And so with the calorie deficit situation, your body is taking that protein and through a process called glucokinesis is actually going to be converting it into glucose, which is really hard on the body. And some people can do it just fine and they don't suffer GI issues, but because we were really focused on addressing GI issues, that's why we decided to eliminate the protein. Really important for recovery and it's part of your overall diet. But during exercise, you actually don't need it. So
Yeah.
sorry, that was kind of a roundabout way of explaining it, but
No, that was super helpful. And I'm just thinking about my own experience. And I think I shared with you this before that I'm starting to do these longer runs and I'm maybe only drinking water. And my coach is like, no, you need to do more than this, right? You need to take a look at Tailwind Nutrition, and this is going to help, really fuel your body so you can perform better on your run. So, it's really interesting to hear from you kind of the science behind it and the why. So that's super helpful. And, let's talk a little bit in particular about the products and your manufacturing process. So I know a little bit about, kind of how you manufacture, but maybe share a little bit about, again, what kind of makes you different from others.
yeah. So when we first started Tailwind, it was really important to us that we also create a community asset and create local jobs. So we manufacture everything locally in Durango, Colorado. So we manufacture it, we ship it all from here. All of our employees are based out of here. So it was really important to us to build that community asset. And I think that makes us a little bit different. And also because of that, we're really able to respond to our customers. We do all of our product development here in Durango as well. Just Jeff really driving product development along with Monica, who is our QA manager and just has an amazing scientific mind. So it's a really collaborative process. So I think that aspect of the business is really important to us and paying a livable wage. We live in a rural area in one of those mountain communities that definitely has seen its series of challenges, particularly during the COVID and coming out of COVID. So being able to create this community asset has been really important to us. And, I would say also that I might get a little bit emotional about this, so sorry, but our customers are amazing. And so anything that we can do for our customers, that's very central to what we do. They are a reason for being here and continuing to be here after 12 years and gathering their feedback and their insights and their input is really critical for our company and servicing their needs. So that's a really important piece, if not the most important piece for us.
Well, I'm one of your biggest fans, so
Well,
thank you
thank
for
you.
sharing that. And yeah, I mean, I love what you do, and I love the little things that you do. I actually have Tailwind sitting right next to me, and you wrote my name
Yeah.
on the container, and that's
Mm.
really special, and it really shows how much you care for not for your customers, but you also talked about caring for your employees and your community. So I really love what your brand stands for. So let's talk a little bit more about the product. So I'll just share some of my examples and would love to
Mhm.
hear, your thoughts on this. So like I'm looking at it right now. So endurance fuel. So this is what I'm using on my runs. And I know I think there's versions with caffeine and maybe without
Mhm.
caffeine. So tell me a little bit about that. So I want to use everything with caffeine. I think that's what I need. But when would I use one versus another? And share a little bit about some of the other products that you have.
Yeah, sure. So that's a really good question. So caffeine has two really good benefits for endurance athletes. One is essential nervous system boost that we're all familiar with, right? When you take a cup of coffee. The other is that it also can mobilize fatty acids, which can be used as another form of fuel. So if you take caffeine, at the beginning of your race, it takes about 3 hours for those fatty acids to be mobilized and converted into that usable form of energy. So that's a really good use for it. People also take the caffeinated products if they're doing a 24-hour event. They'll take it in the middle of the night, or if they're near the end of their event and they want that little oomph at the end, they'll take it then as well. In general, you don't want to exceed 500 milligrams of caffeine within a 24-hour period. So if you're doing just the strictly caffeinated products, you probably want to limit it to less than 6 hours of continuous use. So that's the one thing to pay attention to. And if you also are participating in high school sports, and we have quite a number of high school athletes, caffeine is generally banned at the high school level. So that's something that people just need to be aware of. But it does have those two important benefits for athletes: the essential nervous system boost and mobilizing the fatty acids. So that's our caffeinated products, and then our regular endurance fuel, of course, is what we came out with originally. The caffeine was a request from our customers, and then the other product that we have is our recovery mix, which is really designed for after a big workout. And the whole idea of recovery is really to help you basically to set you up for your next training session. So if you think about it, if you start a training session and you're feeling like really weak, or just not at your optimum level, you're not going to have as strong of a workout, which ultimately is what leads to your success when you get to your event, right? So recovery is often very overlooked, but a critical component if you really want to maximize your training. And immediately post exercise is the best time to take in a product like our recovery mix, with the focus on replenishing your glycogen stores. So, immediately post exercise, your body actually physiologically has evolved to absorb more glucose than at any other time. And the reason for that is the insulin sensitivity. So, immediately post exercise, this insulin sensitivity is still in effect, and it'll actually drive more glucose into your cells than at any other time. So you definitely want to take advantage, and that sensitivity lasts for about an hour after your activity. So that's why you want to hit the glucose right away, whether it's through our recovery mix or through a sports drink or whatever. You want to take in some glucose. And then the second piece, of course, is rebuilding your damaged muscle tissue, which happens with the protein. And um, and so our recovery mix, it really is designed as being, again, to be very simple and convenient. So if you can get to a kitchen and have a meal, great. That you should absolutely do that. But if you find that you're not near the kitchen, then this is just an easy way to jumpstart your recovery with that glycogen replacement. So, or replenishment. So coming off the trail, coming off the course, or wherever you are, if you're far away from the kitchen, then you just take a stick pack, mix it with water, and you're jumpstarting your recovery. But again, if you're like near a kitchen, then definitely go for the full meal, right? And one of the things that makes our recovery mix specifically really different from other recovery mixes on the market is that, first off, it's vegan. So we use a rice protein, which we buff out with amino acids to build what we call a perfectly complete protein. And this is when the amino acids are present in the right ratios and amounts to build that complete protein. And as a result of the way we built it, it ends up being 77% efficient. So 3 times more efficient than a whey protein isolate in the same serving. So you would take 11 grams of our recovery mix versus 30 grams of a whey protein isolate in order to get the same amount of complete protein. So that's why it's really what sets it apart. You want to target about 15 grams of complete protein for a full recovery, and between about 400 to 425 calories within that first hour in order to replenish your glycogen stores.
That's super
And
interesting. I love that you shared that, and that I didn't even know that. So I've been primarily using the endurance fuel, but I
mhm.
definitely need to take a look at the recovery.
Yeah, I call it, so I'm 57, and so I don't recover the way that I used to in my 20s. And I call this I call it the old woman elixir. The guys in our office, they call it the old men's elixir, because it's a game. It has truly been a game changer for me, um, in terms of my ability to recover and go out the next day and go out and do another hard effort. It's amazing. And we have some athletes who are actually taking recovery mix during the course of if they're going like 12 to 24 hours, they actually take our recovery mix, which sounds counterintuitive because I just said that protein can contribute to GI distress. But because the bulk of our recovery mix is amino acids, those amino acids just pass straight through. They don't have to be digested. So that's also a major difference.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
Jenny, thank you so much. I love this conversation. It's been so informative
Yeah.
for our listeners. So, as we kind of wind down here, I'd love to know, what's next for you as an athlete, and then what's next for Tailwind Nutrition.
Yeah. So what's next for me as an athlete? I just finished up there's a event here called 12 Hours of Mesa Verde. So I just finished up that, and then yeah, I'll be going on a week long mountain biking trip. So I'm really looking forward to that in South Dakota and exploring the Black Hills. So that's what's next for me personally. And then from a sports standpoint, obviously there's a lot going on in everyone's life. So I do have a life outside of outside of Tailwind. And then for Tailwind, I guess, we're always going to continue to be focused on our customers. And the big news for us is that we are going to be releasing a new product this next Thursday. And it is a collaboration with Courtney DeWalter, and it's called DeWalter Melon, and it's a watermelon and lime endurance fuel flavor that we're super excited about. We've received fantastic feedback. And what was really exciting was just collaborating with Courtney. So this was a flavor that she chose. She helped tweak the flavor, dial it in. She's going to be using it at Western States and at Hard Rock. So we're super excited about it. So that's what's new and coming. And then there's some other little secrets coming down the road as well that hopefully will be ready in October. So
Well, I'm looking forward to all of it.
yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jenny. I'm really excited
yeah.
about, what's to come, and really grateful for what you're making today. And it's helped me personally in my own journey, and I'm sure many others. But, sharing this information with our listeners, if they're not taking, proper high nutrition today for their trainings and for their races, this is a great option for them, and really excited to share this with them. So, Jenny, how can our listeners find Tailwind Nutrition and follow your journey online?
Yeah, so we're available in a lot of specialty stores in addition to REI. You can also find us on our website, tailwindnutrition.com. And then just to, learn more about our company and who we are and what we do, you can follow our social media. We are on Instagram, Tailwind Nutrition, and then also Facebook, Tailwind Nutrition. So we're pretty easy to find. And we hope that you will join us on this journey. It's been an incredible one so far, and we're really looking forward to what happens next. And we love sharing what we do with everyone and anyone who's interested. So please join us on this journey. It's been an amazing one so far.
Great. Thank you so much, Jenny. Thank you for taking the time to come on the show. And, again, we'll be
Mhm.
looking forward to what's coming next in the next couple of weeks and months. So, with that, thanks again and have a great day.
Okay, thanks. You too. Bye.